Hello. Welcome to our October, I can't believe it's October, uh, webinar. We are so excited to have folks here. Yep, here, everyone's coming in now. Here we go. Here we go. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our Parenting with Pride, our monthly webinar. We are going to be so ready to be advocates. We are going to be like ready to go after we have this amazing workshop tonight. We are honored to have PFLAG National for our PFLAGers on here. Y'all know Katie Blair, and we are excited to be collaborating and really getting to work way before legislative session. So thank you for being here. If you'd like, you are welcome in our chat to put your name and where you're coming from. We love to see where everyone is throughout our beautiful state of Florida. And we will get started in just a minute. And also a reminder, I want to put it out there. We do record this, and so that we have it on our YouTube channel for folks that aren't able to join us live. And I just want folks to be aware of that. So if there's anything, we want you to be interactive. We want you to join in. If you have questions, feel free. You can put them in the chat. You could, ask to unmute. And we really want this to be a conversation, but we want you to be aware that it is recorded. So we don't want anything said that you wouldn't want on there recording. And if there's something personal that you have a question about or an issue, feel free to reach out to me afterwards, and we'll make sure that we get everything resolved. All right, perfect. We have more folks coming in. Welcome, welcome. And we actually have another presenter, and from Equality Florida, those of you that are in the Tampa area, I'm sure you're familiar with them, and they are going to be popping on soon. They were in some Tampa traffic, which, listen, it's like anything like Miami traffic, it's interesting. So they will be coming on, but we are going to start with Katie anyway. So you want to jump in and say hi to everyone, Katie?
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Katie Blair. I'm the Vice President of Advocacy at PFLAG National. My pronouns are she and her. I live in the state of Indiana, Indianapolis, but I'm quite familiar with Florida. Our state legislature really followed in your steps, trying to pass a lot of bad anti-trans legislation. And so, unfortunately, I used a lot of the great work that you did there to chart a path in Indiana. So I'm really excited to talk to you all and to hear, what you're experiencing down in Florida. I'm happy to start my presentation, Jennifer, if you'd like.
Yeah, I mean, I think as folks come in, yeah, they're all coming in now. I'm admitting them in. But yeah, we have so much to go over. I know we had slotted 2 hours. I don't know that we'll take up the full 2 hours, but we're not in a rush, which is nice because our 1 hour webinars, like they just fly right by. So yeah, why don't we get started? And like I said, I know Anne's going to be joining us for the second half. But yeah, let's get started. And those of you that just came on, feel free in our chat. You can put your name, where you're coming from here in Florida. And any questions, I'll be monitoring the chat. So if you hear something that Katie says and you want to hear more about it, or you have a question about it, feel free to put that in the chat. And Katie, I will let you know what I see coming
Thank
in.
you, Jennifer. I am very bad at multitasking.
Yeah, no,
So
I
that's
can't do it
really
either. You have
helpful.
to have someone doing the chat and someone doing the presentation. It doesn't work. So I volunteer for the chat.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. How today's presentation is kind of going to go is I'm going to do a little bit of a Civics 101, which it'll be super easy for some of you, but I think it's really good for us to always start in the same playing field, start on the same plane. And then Ant is going to go into some more kind of meaty training aspects of advocacy. And then I'm also going to talk about an upcoming campaign that we're launching next week from PFLAG National. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now. Great. All right. So, like we said, we're going to talk about state and local government today. And I'm sorry, I can't get my thing to work. there we go. So, why do we care about state and local government? So, it's unprecedented attacks on the LGBTQ community at every level of government. I think we sometimes get tunnel vision thinking about the federal government, thinking about, every day there's a new horrific thing coming out of DC. But we know that we can make the most change in our backyards. So, since January 1st, there were 588 pieces of anti LGBTQ legislation not passed, introduced across the country. Um, so it's continued executive orders from Trump, including several targeting trans youth. We have an excellent executive orders tracker and explainer on PFLAG National's website, just to give a quick plug to that. And then we're seeing attacks happening at all levels of government. 43% of young people are saying that they attend a school with at least one anti-LGBTQ policy. And I know you all know that all too well. You do so much work in your school boards and in Florida. And more cities across the US are adding policies that impact the lives of the LGBTQ community every day. So let's talk a little bit about the power of local LGBTQ plus advocacy. So, why is it important? I kind of said this already, but the laws that affect us most are the ones passed right in our backyard. They're also the easiest to influence. A lot of us know our city councilors, or we know our school board members, or they're easy to find, and we can introduce ourselves and build those relationships. State and local governments, they shape whether LGBTQ plus people and their families are supported or targeted in their communities. And knowing how these systems work, knowing how all of these levels of government work, it empowers people to see where decisions are made, who's making them, and how they can influence them. And when folks understand these systems, they can show up, speak out, and they can really hold their leaders accountable. So this change, it often starts so close to home, and informed, engaged communities are the foundation of lasting progress. I'm not just like kind of blowing smoke right now. Living in Indiana, I've worked a lot at the local level, and we've been able to pass so much good stuff that way that we oftentimes can't get through the state legislature. So now we're going to get into the basics. Again, this is going to maybe be old hat for some of you, but we're going to hop in. So let's talk about the makeup of school boards. So they serve as the governing bodies of school districts, of course. They have the responsibilities to set the policies that impact the daily experiences of students. They often set the budget for their school districts. They usually report to a state level officer who oversees the education department of the state or the region. And then their impact on LGBTQ people and their families, just to name a few, they can pass non-discrimination policies. They can put in place anti-bullying policies. They can also work to include books and curriculum that reflect the lived experiences of LGBTQ plus people. And then that means while we have all these great policies that they could pass, they can also do harm. And I know that book bans in particular are really sweeping across the country. And that's one place, school boards, that we've been able to see some really effective advocacy. And I know you've all done some great work in Florida. And so, how are they elected? Most school boards are elected, but the exact process depends on the state and local laws. Some bigger cities have school board members that are appointed by the mayor or the city council, but overall, they're mostly elected. So then we go into library boards. This is like a really exciting place for advocacy. There's a lot of different levers you can pull at these boards. So the boards oversee public libraries in a given area, of course, duh. But their responsibilities, they can create, edit, and develop library policies. They determine their budget, and they hire and evaluate library directors. So how does this impact LGBTQ plus people? They determine the materials available in libraries. They have a say in library programs, so what programs they put in place or what programs they don't. And these policy decisions, they impact things like access to information. So members of library boards are usually appointed by mayors, city councilors, or county commissioners. I'm going to take a quick sip of my water.
Yeah, Katie, we are so proud in Florida that we are like #1 in book bans. So
Oh,
yeah, no, we're
it's a
not.
race to the bottom.
I
Well,
know,
I'm
but this is so important because, it's amazing to see who our superheroes are, and who would have thought librarians, but they have really stood up, and they're incredible advocates. So supporting, something like this is, you wouldn't think that's where we would see these incredible advocates, but we are all over for sure.
And that's why it's so important to make those relationships with people in these positions of power, because they're they have so much responsibility in ways that we don't even think of. And so building relationships and being that trusted face, that trusted parent with your experience to share is just so critical. All right. So then we're going to go to city councils. They serve as local legislatures. Their responsibilities are creating and approving laws or ordinances. They approve the city budget. They control services like safety, utilities, and community programs. They oversee city officials and they regulate land use and businesses. So, what do they do with how do they impact LGBTQ plus people and their families? Well, they can pass local protections against discrimination. In Indiana, we have human rights ordinances. Jennifer, do you have human rights ordinances in Florida? That's kind of non-discrimination protections for cities.
Yes, right.
Yes.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yes.
They,
Amanda's joined us, and they know way more than I do about that kind of
I
stuff.
know. I'm
Yeah,
excited to hear from them.
hi, y'all. We have about 14 municipalities and counties uh, combined that have a human rights ordinance in place, but also um, we have a state level entity that obviously is more questionable these days, but the state level entity did in previous years agree with I believe it's the Bostock decision. Am I
Yeah.
remembering that right?
Hmm.
And begin to enforce, equal rights under the law in that way, which
Hmm.
allowed for all counties to have that, or all people in every county to have that sort of protection.
And so also with those 14 municipalities with human rights ordinances, it's kind of a patchwork of protections across the state. So they can also fund inclusive programming and services, and they can promote welcoming spaces in schools, parks, and public facilities. So city councilors are elected, but the exact structure depends on the city charter or law. Some city councilors can be appointed, but that's very rare. And then just going into state legislatures. And I am so proud of you all in Florida. It's what is it, 2 years without anti-LGBTQ laws being passed in Florida? I need the rest of the country to take note. I mean, this is just awesome. Thank you for all the work that you do. And their responsibilities are to provide checks and balances to the executive branch and the judicial branches of their state. They create and pass state laws, they approve budgets, and they oversee government programs. Their impact on LGBTQ plus people and their families is that they pass laws that protect or threaten rights. They shape access to healthcare and social services. They influence education policies, and they can establish non-discrimination policies. Legislators are elected by voters in their district. Their terms and how often they happen vary by state. So that is my Civics 101. And I am happy to pass it over to Ant to get into the nitty gritty.
Yeah, no, that's perfect timing. And I apologize in advance. My nephews are over, spending time with my partner and my mother, and so they're just having fun being nephews. So I hope it's not too disruptive. But this is perfect timing. We just talked about those successes we've seen on the state level, and that is all through advocacy, through folks showing up at the Capitol. So I should take us back a little bit. Thanks for holding down everything, Jennifer and Katie, while I was getting through traffic. But
that
my name is
Tampa traffic is a beast. We
Oh, it
understand.
really is. And then, and in addition to that, there was a car accident, so lots of slowdowns. My name's Ant. I use they them pronouns, and I am a community organizer in the Tampa Bay area, as Katie alluded to, for Equality Florida. So what I'm going to talk about, Katie laid down great groundwork of like where and how we, or where we advocate. We have put together these legislative advocacy tools of building our personal narrative to show up to those spaces with a foundation of advocacy. Matt, or welcome. Awesome. Yeah, do we have other folks from Tampa on the call? Awesome. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share a screen, pop into that slide deck, and then we'll go through a little bit about building our personal narrative. So the first thing on that is sort of why are stories important? And what Jennifer just dropped in the chat, thank you, Jennifer, is the personal narrative worksheet. It is, you know, you can take that to print out and work with if you're comfortable with that. You can just use it to reference the questions that we're going to go over. But this is a tool we're going to use to build that personal narrative, which operates as a foundation for every time we're talking to a lawmaker in a meeting, every time we're speaking at, you know, one of those city council, school board, library board. That's one that I often forget. So thanks for mentioning that, Katie. And what's really great about those really granular hyperlocal spaces is that the influence is so much more, and the potential for change is so much greater. So it really is worth it getting involved. So, and the way we get involved is with our personal narrative. So first, why tell stories over, you know, why don't we just get a bunch of folks who are experts in this to come and talk and deliver some facts and figures, and everyone's mind's going to be changed by that. Unfortunately, that very logical thought is not what we know changes people's minds about things. We need stories to be able to make that shift in folks, to be able to get people thinking. So, you know, when we talk about the successes that we've seen at the state level in advocating, those have only been possible because we have mobilized and we've had hundreds of people willing to come to the Capitol and speak and advocate. So those have been in successes of shifting laws in ways that they're less harmful, and so they no longer become harmful legislation. Eliminating laws by simply filling the room with advocates and speaking and taking up that time. And so then the law is timed out and can't pass that committee. So procedural wins like that. And so, but we can't do that without folks willing to come and advocate. And so we built this narrative process to build that foundation. So we know that stories elicit greater empathy, more than facts and statistics. They can motivate those who hear them to take positive action. So, and lower audience members' resistance. All right, and so real quick in the comments, or if you wanted to come off mute, you know, does anyone have a quick story on a time where you've seen a story impact someone's opinion or thought on a matter, whether you told the story, whether it's been your opinion that shifted. Did anyone have a story of seeing story shifting someone's view or perspective on an issue that they might want to share?
I've got
I'll
a
share
story,
something.
but
Oh,
go ahead.
sorry. Go ahead, Jennifer.
No, please go ahead.
Okay,
Yeah.
also I want to apologize. I am having trouble turning my video on. I did try to work with Victor. I mean, we didn't actually connect because of time zones, but anyway, I'll tell a short story. So I am a parent of a trans daughter. She's 26 now, and I have two family members, two siblings of mine who are not on board. But one day I had a conversation with my now deceased brother, and he just finally point blank asked me what was happening. And when I told him my daughter's story, um, he then understood. I mean, it's not that he, you know, felt he wasn't embracing it, but he listened, and I could tell. I mean, we were on the phone, which is unfortunate, but I could tell that he hadn't had that perspective before, because he's so, all that propaganda coming, and he's a Trump, he was a MAGA. He would have been MAGA like 1,000% if he were still with us, um, but I could tell that whatever I said, I mean, I think the words I used, I was trying to be very, um, just very clear. I was very, very clear with my daughter's story. So, while I didn't get the validation I would have wanted, I wasn't asking it from him, exactly, but I'm pretty sure, like, I just had this certain feeling that things had shifted. I mean, he is her uncle after all, and they did have a relationship for a number of years, mostly in her childhood. Anyway, thank you.
Yeah. No, thanks so much for sharing that. That is such a great example of when you just know the difference between the conversations that you might have had before and when the wheels start turning in that family member, in coworkers or lawmakers, right? And I don't think I certainly don't go to any advocacy opportunity with the expectation that I'm going to flip a switch in someone, and even lawmakers, and then suddenly they're going to vote my way. Suddenly they're going to believe the things I believe or feel the things I feel. Because me as an individual, it's it's I'm laying the groundwork. I'm planting a seed. Maybe it's not even in that lawmaker. Maybe it's in, you know, two or three people in the gallery with me who didn't have the best opinion about, trans folks or what have you. And now those wheels have started turning. And that's what's really meaningful. And that's why it's about a critical mass of advocacy. It's about, every individual making the choice to step up and be an advocate, but hopefully lots of us doing it and showing that we can so that more folks can. So I really appreciate you sharing that. All right, so we really start to see, thanks, yeah. We really start to see that folks think in stories. And so we need to match that in how we are explaining things, how we are bringing information to them. And we can only, as individuals, do that by being the subject matter expert of ourselves, right? Of our lives, of our community, our children, what have you. And unless we, of course, are subject matter experts in some sort of, facts or figures, that's always fine to bring to the table as well. We are certainly in our own lives, right? And so let's move on to talking about what I call the anatomy of a story. And that's the questions you'll see on the worksheet. You can definitely just follow along with the slides. If you like working with, a notes app or a pen and paper to take notes, and think about these questions and think about how this works in your life. So first we're talking, and again, for folks who aren't joining us from Florida, I realize we might have folks, but think about who you are and your connection to your state where you're advocating, right? What region you are in that state, how long you've lived there. And this isn't more meaningful if you've lived there longer or less meaningful if you've only been there a short time, because you made the decision to move there, right? So if it's been a month, then that is meaningful that you picked up and moved for that reason. So the length of time is not meaningful, but just knowing that and incorporating that into your story, I think is really meaningful. What connects you to that local community? So it kind of goes hand in hand with the next question of who you are to the community. So what connects you is like, what are you involved in? What are you engaged in? Is it PFLAG? Is it PTA? Is it a club that doesn't have to do with our kids? That is also fine. And then who do you show up as? You show up maybe as a parent, you show up as a neighbor, a best friend, and that really has to do with your personal identity and who you believe yourself to be in your community. Then when we talk about building our story, we want to share experiences of how, legislation in your locality, or even the potential legislation, the potential impact, and the what you're seeing have impacted your life, your community, your kiddos, your family more broadly. So in that, what happened? How did it affect daily life? And what were the practical consequences? A story that really sticks with me is when a parent at my local PFLAG came and told us how they've had to start making routine trips to Michigan because that is the state where their kiddo could get affirming health care. And, that blew me away as a person who does not fly very often. And thinking about the sacrifices they had to make. I, also have friends in that same PFLAG that had to make the sacrifice to send their kiddos to private school because they didn't feel supported, in the public school. And so those are examples of the practical consequences of how legislation or policy has impacted their family. And you might have some others for yourself. So then kind of digging even deeper into practical consequences, we think about economic impact. And this is really important to incorporate into our stories because lawmakers of all types, but I think especially more conservative-minded ones, are thinking about that from a constituent perspective because that is such a big part of their ideology, the economics of things. And so bringing that to the table is a really great way to talk about shared values, so to speak, or at least shared, we all have to deal with, the ever-present, crush of needing money and resources, right? And so talking about the economic impacts, I mean, those parents that have to travel to Michigan routinely, that can't be cheap, right? And in Florida, and I think in a lot of states that have sort of fixated on the culture wars, we know that they've also ignored, what folks call bread and butter issues, like the insurance cost crisis here, especially homeowners insurance. And that's a huge impact. So their lack of action in real governing issues has been an economic impact, and a thing I often see folks incorporate into their stories. Then this is a piece that obviously changes depending on the venue, depending on that channel of advocacy that you're showing up for, and of course, depending on the issue. But the ask is formulated by, it's going to be that culmination of everything you've just shared about yourself and those impacts of your story into, this is what I want you, lawmaker, policymaker, member of this governmental body, to do about it. Whether it's stop these attacks in general, whether it's pass this law or stop this law, or change this policy, that is the ask. And it's really important, and we'll talk a little bit more about sort of how we present when we're standing in front of, we're going to use school boards as an example, but it is important that we're connecting to that story and they can see that connection, but also being very direct. So what specific change? How would this change improve daily life for not just you, but all Floridians? And because what we know, I mean, this is just a given, what we are asking for will improve, life for all Floridians. These are not special privileges. These are not special rights, despite the talking points. They're the rights that everyone has, and we know that these laws impact more people than just folks in the LGBTQ community, especially when we talk about the culture wars around gender. So there's a lot of points to make about how this is a move that is right for every Floridian or member of your state. And then this is also an opportunity to incorporate evidence, examples, but again, no one is expected to be a policy expert or an expert in anything but their story. But examples of how it's impacted your community, your neighborhood, your kiddos, whatever evidence is reliable and you can find, is fine to incorporate and sprinkle in there in that piece, really talking about how it would impact if this would happen. But again, it's not a make or break part of your personal narrative, and it's certainly not the most important part. That, of course, is your story. So that's the anatomy of the story. Do we have any questions about that? Because I talked a lot. Yeah, absolutely, Alicia, I saw that. Any questions about the personal the personal narrative structure? Okay. All right. So what we're going to talk about next is advocating at school board. We're going to use that example again, as Katie pointed out. There's lots of, I know that parents across the country now have lots of experience in standing in front of school boards. We certainly do here in Florida. So we're going to talk about, what it feels like, what it looks like, if it's new, if it's not. I mean, how many folks, let's sort of show of hands or pop it in the chat, how many folks have gone to speak at school boards? I'd love to hear. I see Jennifer raising your hand. Alicia, yes, Ray, several times. Very good, very good. So this is a fun game. You get to let me know if there's something different that I talked about that happens at school board that you see at your school board. I'd love to hear that too, because they're not all going to be the exact same, and we'll talk a little bit about that, how the school board makes their own rules and how it operates. You do have a good time. Yeah. So yeah, I'd love to hear if if things look different at your school board. Feel free to throw that in the chat. And something else that I'll share is a Bring Back Books toolkit. This is a toolkit that we share with folks who are going to advocate at school board. It gives a real big list of talking points that, these are the things that folks can pull that look like evidence, that look like, yeah, that's happening a lot, right? We can definitely talk more about that. But these talking points are great ways to incorporate them into your stories when you want to have those points that definitely already exist for everyone. These points, a lot of them are pulled from the stories we hear from our advocates. I'm going to share that document in the chat. It's called the Bring Back Books Toolkit, and it just gives a good rundown of going to school board and advocating there. So all school boards have a portion for public comment. They will look different. Some of them require you to register in advance. Some do not, and some that do still have like you have to sign up there too. So a really good point, and this is not necessarily to be negative. This is maybe just a little bit of my civic education jadedness leaking out. But the reason I'm very passionate about teaching advocacy and empowering folks to go and talk in these spaces is because these spaces are perhaps intentionally not very easy to be in, and perhaps that is part of the design. So when you encounter something like, I already signed up, why do I need to go here? This seems frustrating. I'm glad I figured it out. Wow, it must confuse so many other people. That might be on purpose. And what's important is that we empower each other to move past that. Katie, I feel like you have lots of thoughts on that. Stays on mute. I love it. That's funny. But yes, that's why, like I said, this is such a important passion of mine to really demystify this. Like these folks, even these folks sit up on a dais, they're literally put themselves higher than us. It is a very weird thing that we do as a society. And so my hope is that we knock out those sort of jitters that all of that show and pageantry causes, and realize that it's a space for us to say our piece, to express things, and they gotta listen. So you have the toolkit. I lost my little button. Okay, so that's what to expect. That sometimes you gotta sign up in advance. I will say almost every time it's probably a good idea to be there at least a good 10 to 15 minutes early. We have one school district that's actually really strict, and so like 30 minutes early. So learn those things. They will put that out on the website, so you can go to your school board's website, find their instructions for speaking. That is fairly easy to find when you know to look for it. And just learn if there's any sort of more heavier burden to get there. Obviously, a lot of school boards, this goes into what I was saying too, a lot of school boards, a lot of city governing bodies and whatnot happen during work hours and are inaccessible in that way. So another channel for advocacy is emailing, right? And reaching out in that way, or requesting a meeting with school board members. Okay, there is a part in here about who you're representing, and the most important part about that and why we mention that folks should not, think of themselves as representing Equality Florida is, like I mentioned with our successes in the state capitol, it's the success comes from having people there, having constituents there, not because look at the size of Equality Florida. They really don't care about us. They really don't care if we have this mass of people. They do care if someone says, hi, I am your constituent and you need to listen to me, and this is what I feel. That is so much more meaningful than if everyone were to say, I'm speaking for Equality Florida. And, you know, obviously there's also all these ridiculous accusations of, you know, activists and all this. And it's like, nope, I'm a parent and and this is who I am in my community. And that's why that's so much more meaningful too, is like, here's who I am. I'm not getting paid for this, you know? So that's an important point there. All right. So approaching your statement, like I alluded to before, it's really important to be direct. I think that, especially when we're arriving in this like intimidating situation, sometimes we might want to just sort of beat around the bush with our statement. We might want to couch it in things, but being direct is so important because you will know that your point is being made, which will not, if you're beating around the bush, you'll just start thinking about how you're not actually being heard because you're not saying it, right? You're not saying what you really want to say. And that doesn't mean I mean, maybe some of us, and maybe all of us, want to, you know, scream at them. But being direct is also going to help us stay calm in that moment too, because we know that our point is being made. If we don't, I've seen it so many times where it sort of devolves into this into situations where it becomes a little more inflammatory, or people just get upset because they don't feel like they're being heard. And we control whether or not we're being heard by being direct. So that's why that's so important. Just a little point, we remind folks that media is there, and just sort of a media training 101. Some media are perfectly well-meaning people, but everyone is there to get their story, and they may ask questions that might lead you to answering in a weird way, ask questions you don't really know, and you might want to make something up. What's really important is you've prepared a statement, you've prepared thoughts to give that statement, so when you're talking to press, just keep repeating your statement. Even if you feel like a robot, keep repeating it, repeat it in another way, repeat it, rephrase it, and repeat it the same thing. Because they're looking for a soundbite. Again, they're just doing their job, even if they're the most well-meaning member of the press. But they're going to be asking questions to get a good story that evening. Again, this is a maybe. This sometimes happens. And also, you can always decline. You do not have to talk to press, obviously. Or maybe that's not obvious, just so you know. But you're also welcome to. And that's just a good habit to have, of continually repeating your talking point, that your message, and be direct on it. Any thoughts on that, or even the last cup? So a few key points. Yep, see, Alicia's right there with us. Key points is very important, and we'll talk actually a little more about kind of what structure looks like. Actually, yeah. All right. So looking at structure, we're finding our comfort zone, and when we build that personal narrative, that's where we found it, right? That's a foundation. We know who we are. We know why we're standing here in front of this body. We know what the ask is. That's your comfort zone. You are the subject matter expert in, because you built it, right? The time limit is going to be different for everybody. It can be as much as 3 minutes. I've never really seen anything higher than that. Some are around 2 minutes, and when there's a lot of folks speaking on it, the board or committee, what have you, may decide to shorten time for people's statements. So in the state capitol, I've seen as short as 30 seconds. In local government, it tends to be more like a minute. But so what we encourage folks to do is to prepare a 3-minute statement, and then prepare a shorter 1-minute statement, and then pull from that some bullet points. Like Alicia was saying, key points that you want to communicate to get out there very quickly if, you know, God forbid it was shortened even longer, or just to make yourself comfortable and use all the time you have to just know, I'm communicating this, I'm taking some breaths, I'm communicating that, I'm taking some breaths, and let yourself use the time you have. Sometimes 2 minutes is plenty of time. I just have a quick thing to say, right? But I'm going to take my time saying it and not and ensure that I'm getting my point across. Yeah, a few versions ready to go. And rehearse it. Take your time. I mean, I am pretty notorious for never wanting to rehearse things or even prepare statements sometimes, and that's to my downfall. So don't be shy about, you know, giving yourself a performance in the mirror, making your kids listen to you, making your partners listen to you, what have you. Or just sit down with a timer on your phone, take, 10 minutes and practice delivering the statement a couple times, making sure you're in time, and that, it really doesn't take more than 10 minutes after you've written it. What I like to do is write it and then step away from it because I'm exhausted from writing it, and then going back and giving myself a little bit of a rehearsal. And then a really important thing is to consider shared values. And this is so important on those hyper local level advocacy opportunities. We live in the same community. Like, I literally am right down the road from my state representative. Are we friends? No, we are not friends. But we literally share the same community. We literally shop at the same Publix. Like, like there's lots of shared values, although I am probably not shopping at Publix anymore, if you've seen the headlines. Scary. But find those shared values, and here's some great points. Some freedom from discrimination. More and more, this is less becoming, of course everyone agrees with that, but find those shared values. Fair treatment under the law, definitely, even if the other side is pretending to agree with that, they should agree with that. And the same opportunities. And these are just really good talking points for combating that push of like, oh, you want special rights and special privileges and all this. And it's like, no, I just want my kid to be able to, enjoy school. I want my kid to use the restroom. Like, it's so fundamental and it's so baseline. And really bringing them down to grounding them in that this is basic stuff, and we can come together on it. Finding those shared values is really important. And as you'll see in a few slides, when I show an example of someone delivering a statement, there's some shared values, there's some meeting them where they are, but they're being very direct. And I think it gives a great example of that back and forth. You're not trying to become their best friend, but everyone should be able to, be with you, right, in that statement. All right. I feel like I missed something. Nope, that's it. Okay. So this next slide is showing testimony from one of our senior fellows, Samira. This is actually before she became a senior fellow. She's an amazing youth activist here in Florida, and this is her doing her thing at the Hillsborough delegation meeting. I'm not sure if other states do this. I think Katie mentioned you hadn't seen this in other states. So in Florida, our state lawmakers have delegation meetings of like everyone who represents that county, and it's like a town hall but with senators and state representatives, and it's a real hootenanny. But what it really is, it is a great opportunity to talk to everyone who represents you, and let them know, this is what I want you to do next session. They do this all before session. So that's the context of the video, but the statement given, this is probably a better example for state lawmakers because, like, they're meaner, But but on school boards, sometimes you got really cantankerous school boards, and she is direct, and she is getting her point across, and she's meeting them where they are and making them think. I think the wheels are turning for sure. Want to make sure there's no research the person you are going to talk to. Yeah, this is a great point. Are they a grandparent? Are they a parent? Yes, it's a great point, Jennifer. So we'll watch this, and I'd love to know if anyone has thoughts on Samira's statement afterwards. So I'm going to push play, and everyone let me know immediately if you cannot hear it, because I never trust the audio with sharing screen.
Good morning, delegation. My name is Samira Burnside. I'm the founder of the Queer Notion, and I'm here today to speak on behalf of all those in Florida that live their lives under fear of their basic rights and freedoms being taken away. Laws like SB 254, which many people here have voted for, take away parental rights when it comes to their children's well-being. It allows the state to decide what a child needs, something that the Republicans on this panel were very against when it came to vaccinations and masks. I am disappointed in this direction from our Republican Party, which has for a long time valued the power of little government and personal freedoms. Now, to see those values be eschewed, especially by those like Rep. Alvarez, who fought so bravely for our freedom abroad, just to come back and take it away for political points, it hurts. A free Florida means freedom of determination for all people. And I want to thank reps like Rep. Rayner for helping uphold that, and ask that all those with an R next to their names remember the roots of your party before your next vote.
Thank you. Let's not call out people by name. Let's just keep decorum. Keep going, please.
That was it. Thank you for your time.
Right. Thank you.
I just love that every time I see it. Samira is, like I said, a senior fellow with us now, and we work very closely together. I'm in awe of her. So I'd love to hear y'all's thoughts on Samira's right? She's amazing. On what you thought and how she put that together. Feel free to put it in the comment or come off mute if you'd like. Anyone have thoughts on Samira's statement?
Hi, this is Jamie. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So I will say I do like how calm she is. I've been attending my local school board meetings, and understandably, a lot of people have a lot of passion and intense feelings about what's happening. So I appreciate how calm and direct she was when addressing them, and even when she was calling out people specifically, she maintained I would say a little tongue in cheek, which I appreciated, but she did maintain that calm presence, and I think that encouraged a more open dialogue potentially.
Yeah, and look on what the Republicans stand for and how they conduct. Yeah, that is a great point, Jamie. I think so. What the person at the end mentioned is decorum. That's a word that they like to use to make us feel inferior, and that just means this is how I'd like you to behave in these chambers. I don't actually know what it means outside of that. I know it's a weird, yeah, it's one of those silly words that no one actually, Anyway, and they will. Some chambers will be like, no clapping. I've had them not let us snap. I've had them say, don't do that. It's ridiculous sometimes. It's really ridiculous sometimes. But consistently, the decorum rules will include don't call people out by name. So she a little bit stepped over that line, probably knowingly, but I think in an extremely respectful way, just stating the facts of what they did, stating the facts of who they were, honoring their history as a veteran. But what you will probably learn, or maybe already have, I know some of you have, is that elected officials or appointed officials are very thin-skinned, and yeah, they get their feelings get hurt real bad, real easy. But sometimes they need to be told when they're not representing their constituents And so other points made, using their values. I think that is a really good example of meeting them where they are. It makes them think, right? Makes them think about how this is in contrast to their values. Any other thoughts? What about from y'all, Katie or Jennifer? What y'all thinking?
I thought that she did an absolutely amazing job. Going to your point about the clapping or snapping, one way I've gotten past that rule is spirit fingers.
Yeah,
And
a lot of
that's one way. Yeah, and also just being able to, maybe if you are going in a group wearing the same color or the same button or something, so maybe while you can't, you know, clap and everything after their testimony, they feel that support when they look back at the crowd.
yeah, I definitely we routinely hand out stickers to everyone that you know, either we know or, you know, is maybe they showed up in a rainbow shirt, or, you know, you can find your people, right? Or sometimes I'll just go around and ask everyone, and some people tell me no, they don't want a sticker, and some they do. And it's been really helpful to know that you're surrounded by people that are with you. I've even had people like point at their sticker at the speaker and give them a thumbs up, and it's a really great supportive environment when you know you're on the right side of things, so to speak. A school board meeting, all the red and green cards. I've seen that. Yeah, I think I've also seen school boards. I think it was Sarasota that that stopped allowing that. Or maybe that's what they do in Sarasota. I'm not sure. Actually, yeah, is that where you're from, Ray? Are you out of state? Seminole. Okay. Excellent. Okay. I think I've heard Quinn talk about that. So, let's see. Yeah, I hope folks got some insight from that statement. And like I said, that was a delegation meeting, but I think it gives a good example of balancing stories. Next thing, just the final thing I'll be talking about is finding your lawmaker. Okay. So I only prepared a link for Florida. Katie, do you have like a more national link? Or is there?
No, I don't. No, I don't. But I feel like Florida, this is perfect to have it here.
Okay. So I'm sure someone told me commoncause.org apparently
Oh,
also does this. I haven't
oh, wow,
actually
that's
gone through
cool.
and used it, but someone shared at a recent um, training I did of that link. So
Well, in whatever state you're from, I mean, looking up their state
yeah,
website for their Senate or their House, I mean, it's pretty universal across the country.
yeah, and that's all these are. So what I'll do is go through these websites real quick to show, and again, this is probably going to be pretty universal too. The general layout of things, just so you can see what it looks like to look up your lawmaker. So I'm gonna switch to this tab. Okay. Can we all see the Florida Senate page? Awesome. Okay. So this is the main landing page of the Florida Senate. To find your senator, you're going to go to Senators and find my legislator, that is. And in the Senate, you can, on this website, you can just put your zip code. That's where I live. That's my house. Okay. So what this shows is that my senator is vacant because he's now our new CFO. He's the man behind Florida Doge. I feel so proud. But he was my state senator. The state house is District 53. And I'm going to open that up. And so on the Senate page, you can go, it'll lead you to the state representative page. And that's what I did. Now I'll show you the tab. So at the state rep page, it's right there on the front, find your representative. I'm going to go to Hudson. Everyone can learn my address, that's fine. Send me presents. And there is Kevin, who goes to my same public. There's Kevin Steele. He's my state rep. And so right on the page, you can see that he has contact information for his capital office and for his district office. And so when you want to make a meeting with them in district, which is really impactful because they have more time on their hands than when they're in the capital. If you're in Florida, this is the time to do it. They're just entering what are called committee weeks, which means like every other week or so they will be in Tallahassee, but they'll have some gaps where they're in their district and they'll have time to meet with constituents. So look up your lawmaker, find their district info, and reach out to that office to make a meeting, to get a meeting with them, and maybe gather, 2 or 3 friends to go as a team and advocate with them. But on here, you can also see, well, actually, it's directions to the office. When we go to his full details, we see his staff, which calling their office and making these meetings with them is also a really important thing to build that rapport with their staff. They are, especially legislative aides, they are sometimes their right ear, and they are often very influential in how they operate. So really good idea to build a rapport with them, especially their schedulers, especially if you plan to go up and advocate in Tallahassee, because that you're on good rapport with Becky, actually Becky back at the district, and she's the scheduler, so it's a lot easier. Which is not to say it's very hard at all. You're a constituent. They have an obligation to meet with you. Even Kevin, where we are not best friends, he has always made time for me, and we have a terrible time every time. Mostly because he's a gaslighter. He's not a fun guy. But we meet, and I know Becky, and it's a good time. But you can go back to contacts. This has those offices again. You can drop an email to him. Thank you, Pia. Drop an email to Kevin, to your rep. And you go back. You can see his sponsored bills. Obviously, there are none because they haven't. Oh wait. Oh, he's gotten one in so far. Read his resignation to state. I'll have to read that up later. That's his first sponsored bill. Anyway, but you can go and check on them as they're sponsoring, as they're submitting bills. Soon we're going to have committee week, so they might start voting on committee on these. Start building your little dossier. And next time you meet with your rep, you can say, "Hey, this is an interesting bill you filed. Let's talk about it." And get the tea on their bills. Then you have other information on them. And the same is going to be true in the Senate. I don't have a senator, so I can't show that. But the layout is going to be the same. You'll be able to see their bills. You're going to be able to see all their contact information and whatnot. So let's go back to the slide. I think that's the last slide. Oh, okay. Yeah, so your local government, in Florida, we have what's called voter information cards, not to be confused with voter ID cards. We don't have those here. Those have all of your your reps and all of the people that you will eventually vote for or vote in that seat. They have the numbers, they don't have the names, but it helps you find out what district you're in, because who remembers that? Well, more and more, we all have to. But so election portal, yeah, the supervisor of elections office, for those who have really good supervisor elections, fortunately for now, we do in Pasco. Some counties can't say that. Are a great resource for just learning about these things. So that's a great point, Jamie. This last thing I have is a mock meeting with a lawmaker. So when we talk about meeting in districts or in the Capitol, what we teach folks is to build teams with these roles in mind. They're going to talk about different roles that they're filling for these meetings. And this helps to structure the meeting so that all the points are made. There's time for stories to be told, and we know that we've covered all the bases. Usually when you get a meeting with a lawmaker, it's 15 to 30 minutes. 30 minutes is really generous. That happens more often in the district. Another reason to get those meetings at district. I remember the days I used to have an hour-long meeting with my lawmaker, who was a conservative. Anyway, it was not Kevin. It was the gal before him. Anyway, but it's important to go in with a structure, with a plan, so you know that so that you know that you're covering all the bases. And so they're going to talk about this. This is some of our colleagues, some of our members of our public policy team. Now Senator Carlos Gamero Smith, Florida State Senator, and actually my former director, is playing these roles in this mock meeting with a lawmaker. And I will just give a little warning. Carlos is a total ham, and he's so adorable the whole video. So I feel like it deserves a warning. It's wonderful.
I'm not hearing it. I don't know if anyone else is hearing it.
Not hearing it? Interesting. Oh, wait. Am I still? Let me just stop sharing and reshare. Maybe I messed something up when I was switching back and forth. All right. Tab. I want final slide share. All right. I'm gonna start it over. Let me know if you hear.
So now, because we feel like this is going to be a really, really important part of helping everyone conceptualize how to facilitate these meetings with lawmakers and staff, we are going to demonstrate and act out a mock lobby visit for you. This is when things are going to get really fun or really awkward, depending on the outcome. LOL. Okay, so I told you we were going to eventually bring back Jordanos and Quinn. So let's beam them up, Brittany. Brittany is our Scotty, by the way. Beam them up, Brittany. Here we go. All right. So yes, we have the whole team back together again. Hey, y'all. So it looks like now we are going to do a mock lobby visit run through for our unpaid lobbyists here. Though this is not a lobbying role, I am going to play the role of lawmaker. Imagine that. But while we have 6 lobbying roles, we also know that there won't always be 6 people in a lobby team. So folks may often play multiple roles. John Harris, let's start with you. What role are you going to be playing for this mock lobby visit?
Sure. I will play the greeter for my team and also the bill expert today.
Okay, great. And then how about you, Quinn?
I will be the scribe and the storyteller.
Nice. And that leaves us with Jordanos. What is your role going to be?
I will be the team leader and the closer.
Okie dokie. Well, it looks like we are all set. Are we ready to get started? No pressure. I'm not nervous at all. This is totally fine. Nothing to see here. Okay. Whew. All right. So you all are walking into my office. Please have a seat. So what brings y'all in today?
Well, we just wanted to start off introducing ourselves. We're a group of citizen advocates here with Equality Florida. My name is John Harris Maurer. My pronouns are he, him, his. I live in Tallahassee, and I'm really excited to be here today with my team. I'll let them introduce themselves, so I'll pass it over to Jordanos first.
Hi, my name is Jordanos Mola. I use she, her pronouns, and I live in St. Petersburg. And I'll pass it over to Quinn.
Hey there, and my name is Quinn Diaz. My pronouns are they, them, and I live in Indialantic, Florida.
Nice. Thank you all. Good to meet you.
Thank you. So the bill that we're here to talk to you about today is House Bill 599. This is actually going to be coming up in a committee hearing in front of you next week. So we thought it was really important for you to know a little bit more about it. This is what we call.
I've heard of this bill already.
Yeah, it's getting a lot of attention. It's known as the Workplace Don't Ask, Don't Tell bill. It's one that we have a lot of concerns about. So there are three sort of primary areas of the bill. The first is about, well, before I get to that, I'll say, again, we have a lot of concerns about how just sweeping and broad this bill is, a lot of concerns about how it impacts free speech and the LGBTQ community, but it's really not limited to that. It has a lot of impacts for private sector businesses too, and a lot of these impacts that are really concerning for a number of reasons. So in terms of the bill itself, there are three basic portions of it. The first part is around personal titles and pronouns. And we think this has a lot of sort of censorship elements to it and free speech restrictions for government employees and private contractors. So not just those that are employed by the state, but anybody doing business with the state, which is really broad because we know how many individuals that impacts and how it really gets into even private conversations between an employee and their supervisor who are not at all state workers. But again, sort of restricts how they can acknowledge pronouns and use them respectfully, particularly for transgender employees. The second part of the bill is basically a don't say LGBTQ provision for business. Again, another place where we're seeing a lot of censorship and free speech restrictions for private companies in some cases, as well as private charities and federal, state, or local government bodies. We want to make sure that folks can talk about LGBTQ issues. We know that these are really important for creating a safe and supportive workplace and for so many reasons. So those restrictions give us a lot of concern. And then finally, there is this sort of Bible or biology exemption, which is a really sweeping exemption from workplace policy or penalties for action that somebody claims is based on religious or, quote, biology-based beliefs for government employees or contractors with the government. So there's a lot of ambiguity here. We're not really sure what, quote unquote, biology-based beliefs even means, but we have these policies in the workplace for a long time. They're incredibly important, again, for making sure that we have workplaces that can operate efficiently, smoothly, and comfortably for everybody so that they can be productive and sort of do their best work. And creating these really broad exemptions makes us really nervous about sort of how that could be disrupted.
Understood.
And now we'll pass it over to Quinn just to share a little bit about your personal story and how you could be affected by this bill.
Thanks so much, Jordanos. So as Sean Harris mentioned, we are very concerned about this bill. I am personally very concerned about this bill. This bill would make it very difficult for trans folks like me to show up authentically to our workplaces. Under this bill, I wouldn't be able to count on my coworkers or my supervisors referring to me using my correct pronouns or even my legal name. This bill would transform my work environment into a hostile one and make it almost impossible for folks like me to succeed professionally, as I would be too focused on the disrespect and dehumanization I'm experiencing at work instead of being able to do my job and grow and develop professionally.
Thanks so much, Quinn, for sharing your story. Now, since we know that this will be coming into your committee meeting next week, we wanted to ask, now that you've heard from our bill expert and heard about how this can personally affect people in Florida, if you will vote no against this bill when it comes to your committee hearing.
Well, thank you all for coming in and sharing not only your story, especially you, Quinn, and your personal impact, but also helping to break down exactly what this is. I've heard about this bill in the news, and just so that you know, I opposed the original Don't Say LGBTQ bill, and this proposal sounds a lot like that proposal, except for public and private workplaces. Am I understanding that right?
Yeah, this bill is really sweeping. That original Don't Say LGBTQ bill, we heard sort of framed as an issue for young kids in school around K through 3 education. And what we clearly now see with this bill is that it wasn't about protecting kids. It is about this sort of censorship and control, really restricting what people can say, even, among adults in the private workplace who are supportive of these issues. So a lot of concern about just how sweeping this is and a lot of the government overreach that we're seeing with these sort of policies.
Thank you for that context, John Harris. I know that this is going to be, to Giordano's point, on the committee agenda for a vote. I don't normally speak out a lot about these bills, but as I mentioned, I did vote against the original Don't Say LGBTQ bill a couple years ago and the expansion of that bill last year. And a lot of folks don't know, but my sister is a lesbian. Our family loves and accepts her and celebrates her. And I just hate to see these continued attacks against the LGBTQ community. So, Jordanos, yes, I will be voting against this legislation. And I just want to tell you all how important it is for you to come to Tallahassee and share your stories. Some of the details about this bill I wasn't familiar with until you all and John Harris helped to break it down. And even though I knew I was likely going to be voting against this bill anyway, I just want to make sure that you all understand the value in coming to meet with me and reminding me and keeping me grounded in how bad some of these attacks on LGBTQ people are, because it does help me become a stronger ally and advocate for your community. So thank you for sharing your story and for being here. It really does matter, and I will be opposing this bill.
Thank you so much, Carlos, for your support. And thank you again for taking this time to meet with our group today.
We really appreciate it.
And before we leave, can we just take
Please
a quick
make it quick, because I do have another meeting and I'm being rushed by my staff. What did you say? I'm sorry.
Oh, we would just like to take a quick group picture if you have the time.
Okay, sure. I thought you'd never ask. Absolutely. Snap, snap. There we go.
Okay, I'll go ahead and cut us off there. They go on for like another 2 minutes. They really had a good time making that. That is State Senator Carlos Guillermo-Smith. I was thinking as I was playing, like, I'm going to lead folks in the Capitol to meet with this man, and they will have watched this now. And I think they'll really love that. So yeah, I know that some folks had to jump off and totally understand. That is definitely a wrap up of my presentation. Love to hear any thoughts on that meeting structure and how you think that might be helpful for y'all.
I'll jump in. I think it's really important. I've done lobbying in Tallahassee with this structure and without this structure.
Mm.
Really, you do only get a limited amount of time. And when you go in and everyone really knows exactly what they're going to say, who's going to say, you're going to start, we're going to pass it to you, it just flows. I think your anxiety is down because you're like, okay, I don't need to know anything about
That's one thing.
exactly like my job here. And as parents, I think the thing that we have that's so powerful is our story. And so for us to be in that space and know that, if the, lawmaker has a question about the bill, that's, John Harris is the one that's going to answer that. And so I think that it is important to do that. And I think you make the best use of your time, making sure, and everyone gets a chance to speak. When you're in a large group, sometimes one person kind of gets, goes a little overboard and takes up too much. And before you know it, it happens, right? You've seen it. And so this to me is so important to have the structure because then everybody knows, exactly what they're going to say and when they're going to say it. So I think it's important. And thank you for sharing that. And I'm so lucky to work at Equality Florida as y'all can see. We've just got great folks.
And Jennifer, plus one to everything you said, knowing your role going in there, it also gives you so much more confidence. And another thing about that also is when someone gets going a little too long, one role that I've played and I've assigned people to play is timekeeper. So if someone is kind of going over, you warn them before you go into the meeting so you don't look like a total jerk. But making sure, hey, my role is going to be to keep everybody moving and keep the conversation going. And so then whenever they hear that, they don't think you're coming from a bad place. They know what's going on.
I love that.
That's a really good point. That's a really good point. And there's actually a lot of, I talked about the adding structure, but there's actually a ton of flexibility with this structure. As you saw, like this is a group of 3, there's 6 roles. So everyone has to take 2 roles. The roles are what's important, not necessarily how many people there are, not who does what necessarily. Obviously you want to have aces in their places as the saying goes. But to that point though, not everyone wants to speak. Some people are just like, I'm here. That was enough. And that's cool. And that's where, our scribe comes in, just making sure you're getting good notes, making sure we get that picture at the end, because as our comms team says, if there's no photo, it didn't happen. First few minutes is very nervous, but meeting went good and comfortable because of the structure. Yeah. And Ray, I know you've been to the Capitol with us before. It really is. And as you were talking, Jennifer, I realized that I've only ever advocated in the Capitol with Equality Florida. Like before this job, it was always volunteering with them. And so I have actually never done this without this structure. That sounds terrifying.
It is. Well, and it's frustrating more than anything because I think people take the time to come and they want to be a part of the process. And I love how you said that process doesn't necessarily mean that you're the one sharing your story. You could be there, and if you're like, listen, I'm really good at taking notes, and that's a very important role. And take turns. If it's like, we've got 3 people that have powerful stories, and you're going to speak to this legislator, you can take turns. But when you don't have that, you end up, kind of walking away feeling like you maybe wasted your time, or you didn't, it didn't empower you as much as it could. So yeah.
Yeah, and that's a key thing. Is like one of the really important parts of these meetings is their fact finding. They give us information for John Harris and Quinn. There are full-time lobbyists in Tallahassee during session. To now, all right, well, this is what they said in the meetings. This is how they felt about this, and this is where that gives them new ground to stand on next time they talk to that lawmaker, and it's really, really impactful and has made the success multiple times. And another thing with the flexibility of the structure is like sometimes we have multiple storytellers because we have folks. It's like, all right, we're meeting with this lawmaker and they are sponsoring this bill that would really impact your family, and we want you both to talk. And so we prioritize that. That's what is important with that structure, is just knowing like what is the important thing of this meeting and who are we talking to. That dictates how it goes. Well, like I said, that is it for my end of things. I'll hand it back over to you, Jennifer. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was great. It's almost like for folks that have done it, this was a great refresher. For folks that haven't, sometimes the fear of the unknown, not knowing what exactly happens during those meetings. So this was great because it really showed, and that's exactly what happens. It is very much, and what I love too is a lot of times, if you're meeting with someone like Carlos, which we do because that's such a fun time to go in there. We arm them with our stories so that when they go into a committee hearing, they're able to say, this is important. I'll tell you why. I just had a family come into my office and share a story of how their child is. So, not only do we want to change minds, we also want to support those that are supporting this and arm them with this information so that they can speak on it. And I think that, sometimes we're like, should we go see Carlos? We know how he's voting. We do, because we want to make sure that we are continuing to, to support them, but so that they can use what we give them as sort of I don't want to say weapon because that's a horrible word, but that is true. So first of all, I want to thank both of you. Katie, you are already in Chicago and you took time to do this.
Yes.
I appreciate you so much. I appreciate, for those of you on here who are part of PFLAG, Parenting with Pride would not be Parenting with Pride without PFLAG. And I am just so proud that we work together and that we support each other. And so thank you so much for taking time and being on here. And, Aunt, you are an incredible colleague and the stuff.
Yeah, thank you. No, I'm so glad that we were able to put this together, and thank you again, Katie. I wanted to mention one important thing that you brought up, Jennifer. The fact of meeting with your lawmakers, even if you think they're on your side already, they don't know everything they need to know about these bills, even when they're on our side. There's thousands of bills filed, and even when they're doing their best to know all of them, they don't know why you care about, why this group cares about it. I have people who are our biggest allies in the House say, what's our messaging here? Like literally ask me and my group of volunteers, what do I tell the lawmaker? We're meeting with their aide, and what do I tell the lawmaker to stay on the floor? She needs tools out there. So
Can I add something real quick?
Yeah, please.
I'd love to add the other thing about meeting with a lawmaker, even if you know that they're firmly on your side or even firmly not on your side, the last thing you want is for a lawmaker to go on the floor or in even behind the scenes in meetings and say, I haven't heard anything from my constituents. If they don't hear from you, then they can use that as an excuse to vote against something or for something that's bad. So having your voice represented is so important.
And I have seen that firsthand in Pasco.
Yep.
In my school board. We led a campaign in 2018 to retain our comprehensive LGBTQ guides in the school, and won that campaign. It was under fire from from national hate groups. Now they are indeed hate groups, and we won that campaign by showing up in force and showing the board that we're standing with them. We want them to do the right thing and continue to support our students. And as the supermajority took over in the legislature, and more things started shifting, folks didn't have the capacity. We didn't have the capacity to get people to the school board in the same way. And slowly the school board started saying, maybe people don't care if we change this curriculum and we don't allow this. And we started hearing that directly from the school board. And it was really heartbreaking to see, but we just didn't, we couldn't mobilize there. And I saw it firsthand. So it really is so impactful.
Yeah, I'll share a quick story in Miami-Dade that we really learned a lesson. And not only do you have to show up, but I know folks ask, we'll send out and say, send an email. And I hear like, does it really matter? And it does. And I'll tell you why it does, is because we learned a lesson in Miami-Dade. We had a school board member that was an ally, still is an ally. And when it came to voting for LGBTQ History Month, they did not vote with us. Now, we knew we weren't going to win, but it was a real blow to see this person that we just assumed was going to be an ally. And what she told us was something that will always stick with me. And what she said was, where were you? Because my email, was flooded with hundreds of my constituents that did not want me to vote for this. And I didn't hear from y'all. And it was like, wait, but we thought you knew. And so it is important to always show up and not assume that, lesson learned. And I will tell you, it was a hard lesson to learn. And the next year we made sure we showed up at the meeting. We made sure that we sent the emails, and they said, we look and their aides will calculate and say, hey, you got 40 no's and 3,000 yeses. It does sway them.
Exactly. Like, I feel like there's definitely a place, like, don't underestimate the power of kind of bulk organizing. It just exactly why you said, Jennifer. But anymore, I know we all feel so like, things feel so bleak, but it really is important.
Yeah.
Also,
And
before we get off, well, I don't want to change the subject, but I do not want to forget to talk about my upcoming campaign. So
yeah. No, I think we made all the points. I think we could gab about this all night. let's get into that. I want to hear about that.
Okay, good. Because I was like, oh, I could get a bottle of white wine and we could keep talking and sharing horror stories. So I'm just going to quickly share my screen just really quick. Oh, no, I'm not. So we are launching Fighting for Our Pride. Actually, yes, I am. Hold on. We're about to launch a new campaign. We're launching the new campaign on October 14th. We'll be talking about it at our convention over the weekend. And what it is it's solely focused on advocating at the state and local level. Because just like I said earlier, we know that that's what's going to keep us motivated to make change, not motivated, but the laws that are passed in your backyard are the ones that affect you the most. And so we believe, just like we've covered in this whole thing, that that's the most important place to advocate. So we're building this campaign, and we're going to have a launch webinar. I'm putting it in the chat. It is on October 22nd. I would love to see you there so we can get into the details about this campaign. And we're focusing on core issues that we're seeing moving around the country. And that is, access to healthcare and privacy. That is curriculum censorship and book bans. And then there's also dignity and recognition. And whenever I say that, that's fighting against ID bans, sex redefinition bills, even trans participation in sports. And so we've been tracking these issues and we know that they're not going away. So we're trying to arm our folks with all the tools they need to fight them in their states and their municipalities where they live and at the school board level. So join me to learn more about it. And if you're not already subscribed to the PFLAG listserv, you'll be getting emails from me about it in the coming days. And I look forward to seeing some of you there.
Thank you, Katie. And I will be sure to include this in next month's newsletter that our Parenting with Pride families get, and we'll put it on our website and make sure that folks know where they can sign up. Amazing.
And thanks for letting me talk about that. Was my first time talking about it on a call, and I was a little stumbly, and I'm like so happy to have practiced with you all.
No, I'm excited for that. I already registered, and I'm going to put it on our volunteer newsletter and share that with our PFLAG folks locally too, which I'm sure they're going to get in their own PFLAG newsletter. I'll see it in mine in a second too.
Well, thank you so much. The more people that we have, the better. Yeah, we're building it. So I'm excited.
I love it. Well, that's amazing. Are there any other questions from folks? Is there anything that we didn't cover that you wanted us to cover. I will say that this is the first of a series. We are going to also have another webinar about getting ourselves ready for session, and we have PTA our Kaleidoscope PTA is going to be helping us facilitate, and also our Families for Strong Public Schools. And so it'll be similar, but a little bit different. We want to kind of baby steps get into it. So this was a great introduction. I think we started, Katie, from the beginning, really explaining, what does it mean, to be an advocate, and what does this process look like? And thank you for really walking us through, what we can do. And so I hope that y'all are getting excited that the end result will be that we will see you in Tallahassee. And if you're not in Florida, and you could join us, by the way, but that you can do this in your state as well. But we will be doing Pride at the Capitol. And I am so proud that we are going to have, I'm going to be leading specifically for parents and families. We are really going to be encouraging our PFLAG chapters to bring families. As you could see, being in a small group and being able to go and talk to our lawmakers is how we do advocacy at the top level. You walk away from there just feeling like, even if they're not going to vote that way, feeling like you've done something. And I feel like that's what we all are looking for. Like, what can I do right now that's going to make a difference? And this is a space that you can do that. So we will be in touch, and there will be more trainings. And of course, if you come to Pride at the Capitol, and we have a half-day training right before we do it, we'll hold your hands. You won't be alone, but together we're stronger. And I'm really excited about this. Well, perfect. Well, with that, look at that. We're going to give everyone back about 20 minutes. If there are any questions, like I said, please feel free to reach out. Thank you for being part of our parenting with Pride family. Wait, there's a question. Do we have any current resource or future plans or guidance? I'm balancing
Oh,
that.
that's such a good recommendation, Jamie. Jennifer, let's talk about that. Maybe we can put something together.
I like that.
Or what do we have? I don't know.
It's funny because I am doing a presentation at the PFLAG convention, and I'm doing a whole thing, and I have a whole section on self-care, because I do think figuring out how you balance that is so important, because we can't pour out of an empty cup. And so, I love that on how to balance, this advocacy, with our home life. That might be a whole webinar in itself. Jamie, thank you.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you, Jamie. That's
Me
really
too.
cool.
Yeah, that's great. Think about.
Because we're talking to parents, we're talking to caregivers of all types, and saying, hey, we got to get out there and advocate. And obviously know that that's like, hey, let's just add one more, needle to the haystack. But there's ways. And I think one thing I'll say on it is that the biggest part of this is finding your community of advocates, of fellow advocates. I see that in my local PFLAGs. They are tenacious, amazing folks who show up at Pride of the Capitol every year and bring a whole team. And so find your team and find your community where your role in it. You're that PFLAG abuelita. You're doing you're a part of something, and that is recharging in and of itself, knowing that we are looking out for each other and keeping each other safe and sane and comfortable.
Yeah, that's so well said. And I think that having that team, there's times when you need to kind of pass it on and say, like, I need to step back, I need to take a step back, and identifying that you do need to do self-care. I think it's really important. Also, one of the things that we do, if you're going to go to a school board meeting, is to have like a debrief afterwards, or Pride at the Capitol. Let's talk about what happened. Let's go through the good and the bad. And so just know that when you are doing advocacy with organizations like PFLAG and Equality Florida, that you're part of that team, and that we're there to support you, giving you talking points, to be there physically, but also afterwards to really look at. I know as a parent, and I consider myself pretty thick-skinned when it comes to this. It is very triggering. I mean, I've walked out of school board meetings where I've just been called horrible things for affirming my child, and for me to walk away and feel very triggered. I can't imagine what it would be. I can't imagine for a parent that, you know, this was their first time. So please know that, you know, this is something that we do, like you said, Anne, you know, as a team, as a community.
Thank you all so much. This was such a wonderful evening.
Yeah, this was great. Well, perfect. Thank you all for being here. Again, we will have this on our YouTube channel. If there's someone that you say, hey, you know, you all missed this, but it was great information, they can go on and see it. And thank you both for being here and everyone else. And I wish you a good night, and keep your eye out for our next one. You'll get to register in November, and we will talk soon. Take care, everyone.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much.
Thank you all. Thank you.